How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Tokyo. There is a update. They have caught the suspects who did the robbery at Ginza on Monday at 6:15 p.m. 3 armed assailants went into the shop, and they were there for over 10 minutes apparently before they started smashing things with a crowbar. There's a video that's been on the internet for a few days now that has gone viral of a man who was parked on the street there who showed what was going on, which is just insane. And there was a lot of questions on whether or not these suspects were foreigners. They were not. They were actually Japanese teenagers. And the story is getting even more interesting sadly as we read about this. They were between the ages of 16 and 19 years old. And they found this job on the internet apparently in something that's called a yami baito. There it is on the screen in front of you, just so you know. It's a dark part-time job, a yami baito. And like I've just kind of learned about this as well. I didn't know much about there it is, yami baito. I didn't know much about this word until I started to Google it on Twitter, and apparently the internet has brought about great things. You can find jobs all the time, and now you can also find bad jobs that does stuff like this. And this is crazy to me because I didn't even realize there was a dark side to the part-time market. A baito is Arbeito is I believe it's a German word for a part-time job, written in katakana here in Japan. And this is the very not well-paying jobs like McDonald's or Tsutaya video rental stores. You get people doing this. You can also get these for crime, apparently. And if you Twitter search this term, you'll find a bunch of them. It's like, is this even legal? And you read the comments from young people believing that it's possible to do this and it's legal because it's there, but it's not the case. Anyways, they switched the license plate. So there's a lot of things that we learned from this. So they were hired to do what? That's what the police are starting to dig now, to try to find out what they were actually hired to do. But they tracked them down. They were from Yokohama apparently, and they tracked them down to an apartment in Akasaka. This is a rental car. That car that you saw there, I can just keep playing this because it's just fascinating. It's a rental car, and apparently they changed the license plate numbers, so there was some sort of intelligence in this crime. It wasn't just, as dumb as it looks, sort of. It was pretty dumb. But the police also have one person in custody that is a high school kid, and that's 16, and they can't even release his name. But it's just crazy to me because it seems like most of the crime in Japan is being committed by people between like 16 and 22, like young people. And I kind of wonder why. So it makes me think about like what's going on with the young people of, oh, how you doing? What's going on with the young people? Hey, excuse me, what's going on with you guys? So it's interesting because a lot of you remember what happened at the sushi shop. There was a conveyor belt sushi shop that had young people were licking the sushi, like their fingers and touching the sushi on the belt, and they put it up on social media, and they ended up being arrested, those people who did it, because of nobody was going to kaiten sushi restaurants. Kaiten sushi is the sushi go round conveyor belt sushi restaurants, and the social media has been creating a lot of difficulties with this generation here in Japan, probably all around the world. But we're seeing like these are teenagers. It's, to me, like it's just crazy to think. I guess you could see with the fashion of their shoes, the way that they walk, their body types, that makes a lot of sense. Even that lady, look at her trying to keep them away. This is crazy. And they were just too nice. They just walked right by her. If this is the US, we would have knocked her down at least. I don't know. I'm just saying. But the yami baito is a thing. Some of the news outlets, I appreciate the comments and the feedback from this. Yesterday's live stream was not the greatest in quality from the site of where this was happening. They released this article about the Ginza robbery leader. He was an older gentleman, a person who I guess took advantage of these kids, perhaps, and one of them has escaped and they're on the search for them, but the suspects were in the store for 10 minutes, which is crazy to think about it, before they started to break stuff. So apparently there was some coaching by this older person. But we're going to find out more of this because, you know, the Tokyo police are on top of this, as well as NHK right there. Police subsequently found the abandoned getaway van in Akasaka, and then they arrested 4 people between 16 and 19 at a nearby condominium, which was in Akasaka. They have some pictures of that happening. There's one of the teens on the balcony trying to escape from the apartment complex in Akasaka, and you can hear there's the police have captured the car that you saw in the robbery right there. So that really didn't take a lot of time to find out these, find out where they were. But to me, it's just interesting because crime is not something that we talk about here in Japan very often. This is why I read a lot of the comments here, and some people said, stop complaining about it. I wasn't complaining at all. This is just a fact. In Japan, we're not used to having any kind of crime. So when you have something like this, it is almost like a made for TV, like a Netflix drama. I don't know what it is, but it's a very surreal thing for us to see this, especially with the masks on there. And this is a story that probably will be dominating the news for the next couple of weeks. Do we have any questions here about this? Yeah, good job on the police. They weren't there on the scene. Probably that would have caused some trouble, but they were in there for 10 minutes with the masks on. So it makes me wonder, no one reported them until they started breaking the stuff on the shelves and the glass there. The interesting thing is that they dropped the bag of loot. There was a bag of 30 of the watches found outside the car. So I guess one of the young people didn't want those watches and they dropped them. So 30 of those watches, each one was valued over $10,000 or something. So that's about $300,000 worth of watches that they had just dropped on the street. So they didn't get away with all the goods, apparently. The loot was found, Victor writes in here exactly. I don't know if this was maybe a social media thing as well. Perhaps they were trying to film this for social media. I don't know. It's just weird. The total was approximately $1 million US. Depends on the exchange rate, but it's still a pretty significant crime. The most infamous crime in Japan, and since we're on this topic, I keep touching my whiskers here because it's fascinating. There's a crime that happened in 1968, I believe, where the bonuses of a company in Fuchu, Tokyo was stolen by a man impersonating a police officer, and he was able to get the bank operators were driving the checks to the company, driving the cash, which is weird. And this police officer made off with 3 million yen, which was about close to $1 million in today's currency exchange. That crime went unsolved, and it went past the statute of limitations, and that person who did the crime is okay to go on TV and talk about it with no repercussions whatsoever. It's a very famous robbery. In fact, it's been somewhat romanticized here. Nobody got hurt. He even faked a car explosion by putting a flare under the car to get the drivers to move away from the vehicle while he jumped in and drove away. It's like, this is the stuff. Man, I don't know. Crime doesn't pay, except for this guy who apparently made off with 300 million yen, which is approximately $300,000 or $1 million in today's money. There's actually a Wikipedia in English on the 300 million yen robbery. You might want to check that out. Dominic writes in here, probably teenagers' rebellion because they don't forget their brains are still growing. Our brains don't get matured until about 25. I don't think my brain's matured yet either, so I don't know. Who snitched? Exactly, I'm not sure. Probably one of the kids. Apparently the high schooler who was a robber did not admit anything. He just said, I don't know, which might be a good approach. But again, the legal system here in Japan is very different than in other countries. So sometimes it makes a lot of sense if the game is up to just confess. But if you didn't do it, you didn't do it. So you obviously speak for yourself. robbing stores, bombs near the prime minister. Looks like Japan is seeing its share of crime. I think a lot of it might have to do with just the economy. There's not a lot of options for younger people here in Japan. I mean, economy is not great. And after this pandemic, after the last 3 years, even the tourism industry, which was a growing sector, was not there. But now that it's back, I'm hoping that people can find opportunities, especially younger people who perhaps are studying English or can talk with those from abroad, and that would be a really good thing for a job rather than a life of crime, perhaps a life of tour guiding. I would love to have see more Japanese become tour guides and take people around and show them the countryside outside of Tokyo. Let's see here. Chuni writes in here, don't bring a foreigner to the crew, they'll snitch. I don't want to comment on that. That's not completely true. Sometimes, it just depends who's in your crew. Did you see that movie 12 the bank robbery in Vegas? What's that movie called with Clooney? Nobody snitched, did they? Then there's Heat. It was a driver who snitched, right? So, I don't know. You guys see that movie Heat with Pacino and De Niro? It was a driver that snitched on them. He was the one who wasn't there. There's some security guards apparently getting cash from the post office? No. Are they? Look at that. Ocean's 11, that's right. Well, thank you, Jason. There's security guards with batons that had just gone into the post office to get cash out, I guess. So, I mean, Japan is a pretty safe country. That's why we don't see this very often. And with all the police boxes around, you don't see crime because the police are on patrol all the time. So it's just really bizarre that it happened. And I think even for the police, they probably didn't know how to respond. I don't know. It doesn't happen. Do you train for it? I figure if it's a question to ask the police, I suppose. I don't know if Peter's still doing his Crime Inc. or Homicide Inc. podcasts anymore, but this would be a great story for it to dig in a little bit more. But what's exciting about this is that the details are still unfolding, and it's going to be something to watch. I'm not going to be doing live streams and following this crime, but I think it's just something that we can, talk about, because, what would you have done differently? For me, it's the whole idea that there was this yami baito culture. There's a dark part-time job culture, and I don't know how it works, and that is fascinating to me, and I want to know more about this, not to do it, but because I want to understand a little bit more about the country that I live in. And I think if you're coming to Japan, I think you do too. So there you go. Check it out. You can Google it. Take a look at the 300 million yen robbery. They made it into a couple of movies apparently over the years. That happened in '68. The statute of limitations ended in around 1975. And after that, they said, whoever stole the money, you're free. There's nothing that we can do. Statute of limitations. That might have changed since then, but I would love that guy to come. That's like, who's the dude who jumped out of the airplane with the $1 million? That was in the Prison Break season 1. There's another guy who got away. It's almost like the same kind of a story. It's like an urban legend in a way. But Japan has its own version of it, and you can Wikipedia that thing and check out the story. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in another episode, probably tomorrow, as we move away from robbery to maybe something delicious. I can rob a burger from a store or something. Oh, the airplane dude. That's right. The guy who... I'm curious if anyone knows his name here. Yeah, the airplane dude. The guy who parachuted out. The $1 million man. D.B. Cooper. All right, who got that? Shout out to Blue, Victor, Kelvin, Bobby A. Yeah, there you guys go. Done. All right, see you tomorrow. Stay out of jail. Behave yourselves out there. Learn from other idiots here.